Hello everybody, this is Oshanis. I am sorry that I've been gone for a while. Um, it's been a bit difficult for me to juggle writing these Substack articles, these uploading it to my various platforms, and also just in general uploading them to YouTube, since it takes quite a bit of time. I mean, even though it is an audio file, it does take around, I think, 45 minutes to an hour to actually upload these to YouTube, so I guess you could just say I ran out of patience to just sit down and do them. But I'm going to try and do some more from now on, hopefully get a little bit better at the imagery. But anyway, so I know that everybody has been kind of moved on to the Iran topic already, and believe me, we will get to Iran in the near future. However, I do believe that there are some issues on the domestic front that are a bit deserving of our attention at the moment. And I would say that the largest domestic issue we are facing in this country so far is the complete dereliction of duty that has been going on in California by Karen Bass, the mayor of Los Angeles, and Governor Gavin Newsom. So I think I'm going to talk about that first, because I think that is probably the most pressing issue we have right now on the domestic front. Now, you may have noticed, if you were watching the news, if you're an American, I mean, that President Trump the other week, he federalized about 4,000 National Guard troops, California National Guard troops, mind you. These aren't like federal um, soldiers regularly. They are normally under the influence and control of the California governor. Well, President Trump had taken control of around 4,000 National Guards troops in California to essentially um, restore order to the city of Los Angeles, which had been engulfed in riots, and I think are still rioting as of this day, because I don't believe the troops have not been recalled back to barracks. But anyways, so what happened was ICE agents in Los Angeles conducted raids in order to root out illegal aliens. Now, this is their job under federal law. Despite this, the locals, or at least a very loud subsection of locals, decided to riot in response. And what happened was that the riots kept escalating, with federal agents having bricks thrown at their car windows and were just generally being obstructed by um, the um, the local sanctuary laws and the people there. And this is in Los Angeles, mind you. Mayor Karen Bass deemed it unnecessary to arrest the rioters despite the damage that they were doing to the city. Governor Newsom also didn't seem to have a problem with this. And as a result, President Trump federalized the California National Guard, leading to outrage from Mayor Bass, I don't remember how to pronounce it, and Governor Newsom. The two said that there was no rioting, that everything was under control. Now, in an age where everyone has a video recorder in their pocket, you would think that these politicians would know better than to lie about issues like this, especially when the rioters proudly filmed themselves. Now, who did Bass and Newsom think they were fooling? Like, if you're on social media, if you're online, unless this whole thing was just some giant AI creation, which it wasn't, we could all see that, then it was happening. And for the politicians in California to deny it is just insulting the intelligence of the American people. It's, like the party commanded you to deny the evidence of your eyes and ears type thing. However, thankfully they did not fool President Trump. After his initial deployment of 2,000 National Guard troops of California, he had another 2,000 deployed, bringing the number up to 4,000 in total, and he also sent 700 Marines who had to undergo some training before they could actually arrive into Los Angeles proper, but have since underwent that training and are now in the city protecting federal property, because these protesters and rioters are destroying or attempting to destroy federal property. And after that happened, Governor Newsom, he sued the Trump administration. And a couple nights later, a federal judge ordered Trump to return control of the National Guard to Newsom. But a couple hours after that ruling was issued, a higher court ruled in favor of President Trump and essentially said he could retain control of the National Guard while this case plays out. So, good on Newsom for gloating prematurely. And as of now, the president retains the power to federalize state guard forces should state governors fail in their basic tasks of upholding the laws of the United States. Now, in my opinion, it is outrageous that a federal court even gave credence to Governor Newsom's complaint. The only way that he should have been able to have a case is if he could prove that he utilized all resources available to him and at least tried to prevent the chaos. However, he didn't do that. He didn't even try. What he is arguing is that he has the right to do nothing. The lower court, headed by Judge Breyer, apparently agreed with this assessment, that a governor has the right not to enforce the law if they choose not to, and that the president can't do anything about it. I find this very odd. So, Judge Breyer, are you retrospectively saying that the federalization of the Arkansas National Guard by President Eisenhower in 1957 to protect the Little Rock Nine was illegal? After all, Governor Orville Faubus objected to that federalization as well. Or was the 1963 federalization of the Alabama National Guard by President Kennedy also illegal? After all, Kennedy didn't care what Governor Wallace had to say about that. Are we saying that past presidents undertook illegal action to enforce civil rights law? I would highly doubt that the liberal Judge Breyer would agree with that. But that's different, of course, apparently. Now, the point is that there is plenty of precedent to allow President Trump to federalize the California National Guard. To state that the powers allowed to Presidents Eisenhower and Kennedy don't apply to President Trump for some unknown reason is silly. What is fact is that liberal politicians around America have been derelict in their duty to keep the people safe when criminals run amok. We saw this in 2020. They will refuse to bring the hammer down and allow their cities to burn because of some vague platitudes. In a real country, this would result in arrests, or at least a crushing loss for the party responsible. However, it seems as if a good chunk of the population is perfectly fine with this arrangement, and our federal court system is tending to agree. And should they get their way, normal people in American cities and blue states will be at the mercy of criminal elements, and no authority will be allowed to help them. Voting in presidential elections won't matter because the courts will have ruled that the executive branch is limited in what laws they can enforce. In a way, the liberals want us to return to the initial Articles of Confederation, where we had a weak central government and state governments were allowed to do whatever the heck they wanted. They would love that, at least until a mass exodus of normal people from blue states would occur. Remember, though, when Biden was in office, he fiercely fought for his right to do nothing about the border. When Texas ended up taking the law into their own hands, the Biden administration sued, and the Supreme Court agreed that immigration was a federal matter. So now we get to a contradiction. So, Texas was not allowed to build barriers due to immigration enforcement being a federal power, but somehow California is allowed to be a sanctuary state and set their own immigration policy. So is immigration a federal matter or not? Make up your minds. While President Trump has not invoked the Insurrection Act, I believe that he should. These rioters are waving foreign flags and engaging in combat with US troops and federal agents. What is that if not a hostile foreign force? They couldn't even do optics right. There's no American flag in sight at these riots. They cannot claim that they are some sort of patriotic act of resistance against an expansive federal government. The bad news is that there's another round of mass protests scheduled for the. Actually, no. There was another round of mass protests that was scheduled for the 250th anniversary of America's Army because, they was like, oh, actually, this is just a birthday celebration for Trump, even though it wasn't. And thankfully, there was no mass violence at these riots, although there was an assassination that took place in Minnesota of Melissa Hortman. She was, I think, the Speaker of the Minnesota House of Representatives for a while, but yes, may she rest in peace. Now, there should also be consequences for politicians who engage in rhetoric that fuels these riots. If you cannot yell fire in a crowded theater, you should not be allowed to incite riots at the political level. Remember when they went after Trump for supposedly doing that? With the January 6th issue, where they were like, oh, Trump incited this, but somehow, everybody else who incites these riots doesn't get punished at all. That's annoying. Now, the one silver lining to all of this is that the shoe is finally on the other foot. Those of us on the right had to hear about the January 6th insurrection every day for 4 years. Any rally that right-wingers did was immediately looked upon with suspicion by the federal government. Now, how does it feel, agitators? How does it feel to have the power that you gleefully forced upon us turned upon you? Perhaps the next time you want a 1,000-year liberal state, don't put all your chips behind Joe Biden of all people. You were warned and you didn't listen.